Hello, denizens of this cursed planet Earth. It is I, Vader von Darthcock, here with another breakdown of how woke culture and the SJW reality police are destroying our childhoods, how they are destroying our myths. This week, I have confirmation from an inside source that Kathleen Kennedy is actually getting fired, and Brie Larson is helping her clean out her desk because the Force is furious.
And what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them?
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Hey there, I'm Nathaniel, and welcome to the first installment of Opinions No One Asked For, a show where I give my opinions about something, generally in a timely, or probably actually not very timely way. Today, I'm opinioning about woke, SJW, humanist, Marxist, feminist, Kathleen Kennedy, DEI, or DIE, am I right? Humanist, brainwashing, shill, bad writing, Star Wars. But before I do that, obligatory like and subscribe part of the script. Please, do it. Everyone in your life will thank you, and you'll be a better person. Okay, let's start. Why do I have opinions about Star Wars right now? I don't want to like Star Wars anymore. Why don't I want to like Star Wars anymore? Is it because Kathleen Kennedy and the woke army of SJW, soy boy, lesbian, pansexuals are ruining everything I've ever loved? Is it because Leslie Headland hates Star Wars and hates George Lucas and hates the fans and hates you personally and wants to break all the canons? No, it is not because of any of those things. Part 1, My History with Star Wars. When I was growing up, my family was religiously devout and socially pretty conservative. We didn't have a TV until I was 4, maybe even until I was 5. And even when we got one, we didn't tell like some of our close friends and acquaintances and relatives that we had one because of the potentially damning religious implications. If you caught that almost pun, you were paying attention. The first things I remember seeing on television were at the neighbor kid's house. A butt rock music video on MTV that I remember as Punch Bowl, but that's very surely not the name of it. Labyrinth, and The Empire Strikes Back, specifically the Carbonite scene. That was the first scene from a Star Wars movie I was exposed to, and it scared the shit out of me. The lighting, the creatures, the presence Vader had on screen, a guy getting encased in a block of gray, black ice in front of his wife or girlfriend or whatever was happening.
I love you.
I know.
The sad dog man with a robot on his back or robot backpack. Lots of wearing other sentient beings as backpacks in this movie. My friends rushed me out of the house and made me watch Star Wars before I could watch any more of Empire. Star Wars was totally different for probably obvious reasons. It's lighter all the way through, though the crispy critter scene kind of got to me a little bit. I actually remember rewinding the part where Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's bodies are all on the ground with like some morbid kind of fascination, curiosity at seeing their bodies, and I would watch it over and over again in kind of like terror. Star Wars made it much easier to watch Empire. I knew all the characters. Empire still kind of freaked me out every time I watched it. Then when Jedi came out on VHS, we were just all over it. Like, turns out kids like Star Wars. It's almost like it was made for kids.
You know, it's hard for people to realize, and I'm not supposed to say this, and I wasn't supposed to say it then, but, you know, it's a film for 12-year-olds.
I read the Timothy Zahn books when they hit. I still have the OG Thrawn trilogy, and I read a few of the Star Wars comic books. I didn't really get too into them. I waited with my friends in high school for the 90s remastered versions. I waited with my friends from college to watch the prequel trilogy, and I waited with my children to watch the sequel trilogy. I still have most of my action figures from the 80s, including Han and the Tauntaun, and Jabba, and Salacious Crumb. few of my other guys are definitely buried in the backyard of some suburban house in the greater St. Louis area, in what my friends and I refer to as the Sarlacc pit, only to be discovered by future generations, I'm sure. All this is to say, I've spent 40 years of my life reading, watching, consuming Star Wars. I've earned my Star Wars stripes. I am definitely not a paid shill. As an aside, Disney, if you're watching this, I totally would be a paid shill. Email me for deets, baby. Fast forward to now. We're 11 movies, 7.5 seasons of 6 live action shows, some 25 seasons of 9 animated shows, and 1 animated movie deep in Star Wars. So how's the newest show faring? Let's find out.
Part 2, the reception for Star Wars, The Acolyte.
Before we get into the reception, I need to note episodes 5 and 6 of The Acolyte dropped while I was writing and making this video because I'm incredibly slow. A lot happened in those episodes. I haven't really had time to dig into the responses to those episodes very much. This video will focus on the critical and fan reception to the first 4 episodes, though I can assure you that the general consensus has not moved very much. It hasn't gotten any smarter since then. So, Rotten Tomatoes puts the critics' tomato meter between 80 and 85% anytime over the last, few weeks. We'll talk about the other number in a little bit. Let's skim some critics' reviews, starting with some fresh reviews. Lily Loofborough writes in the Washington Post, "The Acolyte is a lot of fun to watch. The show refreshes the franchise while remaining accessible. The production values have been praised, not sure about that. The action sequences are compelling, but Lily also says the flashbacks are weak. The dialogue feels cheesy, even if it does feel true to the franchise. And she also says, at its core, The Acolyte is a very particular kind of murder mystery. It's not a whodunit, it's more of a why-done-it. And that's not always a mystery's most interesting question. She worries that the show's unwillingness to answer it 4 episodes in is keeping interesting themes from coming clearly into view." Manuel Betancourt writes in the AV Club, "That's the question that drives Master Soul, who's killing Jedi, who finds himself embroiled in this entire affair when he learns a former Padawan of his may have been involved. There's no way to hear of such a premise without it echoing the intertwined fates of, say, Obi-Wan and Anakin, or later, Luke and Kylo. The vexed relationship between mentor and mentee, between master and Padawan, is as old as Star Wars itself, and such twin stories have long been fertile ground for the series. But in Headland's hands, such a connection feels less like a capitulation to only ever telling one kind of Star Wars story, and more like a sense that such cyclical tragedies are inherent in spaces where youth and its attendant obstinance are treated with unwavering hostility." Now we can look at some rotten reviews. Sam Adams says in Slate, "The show pulls back from its most audacious possibilities in a way that suggests the heavy hand of brand management, chipping away at anything that might rock the boat. There's a pattern here. A desire to shake things up, followed by a fear of consequence. It's how you get the audacity of The Last Jedi, followed by the reversion to mean in The Rise of Skywalker. It's how The Mandalorian starts off as an Adventure of the Week show, blissfully unencumbered by lore, only to accrue more and more of it. How it wound up surrounded by prequels and spin-offs, instead of self-contained stories. Overpromise, underdeliver." Rob Owen writes in the Seattle Times, "The Acolyte shuns blasters for hand-to-hand combat and lightsaber battles, but producers make some odd choices. From a spacewalk in a spacesuit, to uniform-like Jedi tunics, to cheap-looking planet exteriors, this is the first Star Wars series to give off a Star Trek The Next Generation vibe." He also writes, "Andor, like The Acolyte, also started slowly and gained narrative momentum. The 4th episode of The Acolyte ends on a cliffhanger that promises a big reveal to come, always a smart trick for keeping viewers hooked. But Andor felt and looked like a Star Wars story through and through, even in its less exciting early episodes. The Acolyte veers more toward generic sci-fi, set in any old galaxy far, far away, or even one relatively close nearby." And we'll end with Alan Sepinwall from Rolling Stone. "The newest Disney Plus Star Wars series, The Acolyte, at least attempts to openly confront the reality that the Jedi are smug, complacent, and kind of terrible. But the execution of that story is spotty throughout the 4 episodes given to critics. And the decision to set it a century before the rise of the Empire seems to defeat the purpose of the whole thing, because the Jedi and the Phantom Menace have learned exactly 0 lessons." He also has this little quip that's just kind of random that I thought was funny. Two of that show's actors play Jedi here. He's referring to Hedlund's Russian doll. Rebecca Henderson as Venestra, a green-skinned, high-ranking member of the Order, and Charlie Bennett as Yord, a Jedi nerd. He also says, Manny Jacinto injects some welcome scoundrel energy as May's ally, Kamir. Like Han Solo and Finn, he doesn't care much about the Force, which is an element the prequels badly lacked. It's especially helpful in a story that is so much about the Force, and which people the Jedi believe should be allowed to wield it. This was, of course, a key theme of the sequels, both within the story and within the awkward baton passing between writer-directors J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. But he also says, this feels like a narrative dead end. That doesn't automatically preclude a good series. The fact that no one learns anything here could be the whole tragic point of the story Hedlund and her company are telling. It's good to see another Star Wars project that, like Andor, interrogates some of the franchise's fundamental assumptions. Entertainment-wise, though, the first half of The Acolyte is, unfortunately, a lot closer to the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, so pretty mixed bag. Seems like the series has a lot of potential, but runs the risk of pulling maybe like an Obi-Wan or an Ahsoka or, at worst, Boba Fett. These reviewers find themes and substantive pieces of the narrative to sort of sink their teeth into. They dig into their material. They aren't personally offended by things that they see in the show, even when they are disappointed. And the responses are reasonable ones to a streaming show that's, in the course of a 50-year-old IP. There are no hyperbolic notions of like feminazis frothing at the mouth at the thought of giving another white boy a sad. They're just giving solid criticism. I think you probably know where this is going. Obviously, The Acolyte has been review bombed. There is no universe in which this show is any worse than the Book of Boba Fett, to be sure. And aside from a few standout episodes or set pieces, it's better than Kenobi so far. Plus, I would rather watch this show than slog through any of the prequel movies, and definitely like Revenge of the Sith.
What did you say?
The negative fan criticism of The Acolyte, and really most recent installments of Star Wars shows and movies, can be grouped together in two sort of main categories. Number one, breaking canon, plot holes, and bad writing. Number two, political and socio-cultural agendas. Let's start with the former, then get to the latter.
Part 3. Breaking canon, plot holes, and bad writing.
In the first 4 episodes, these were the sort of main things that I saw talked about in terms of breaking lore and bad writing in The Acolyte. Episodes 5 and 6 also have some criticism that I've seen, but I gotta get this video that absolutely nobody asked me to make out, so this is what you're gonna get. Flames in space. Bad writing. Chubby Jedi. Woke/bad writing / breaks canon. Because he can't do Jedi moves, I guess? Anakin isn't special anymore because there are some other twins somewhere that also may have been created using the Force. Destroys lore. Ki-Adi-Mundi said in The Phantom Menace,
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
breaks canon. Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday. Breaks canon. The lightsabers are the wrong color, or lightsabers of that color were only used at the Jedi temples, or something. Breaks canon / destroys lore. These are all things one could criticize, if one were so inclined. But how outraged should we be that Leslie Hedlund and her team of writers have no respect for George Lucas's closely protected canon? Well, Lucas introduced a lot of plot holes to the original Star Wars trilogy when he penned the sequels. Here are just a few of them. But it's easy to pick on the prequels, right? Everybody knows the prequels were full of problems. The original trilogy, bulletproof. A good chunk of these are far more problematic than someone decided to give a C-list character a different birth date, or there can't be fire in space. From saying there's air in space when I want it, to continuity is for wimps, George Lucas has always been more dedicated to the story in his head than any other, and he's always known that telling that story the way he wants to tell it is more important than getting every single detail correct. It's okay for the Millennium Falcon to drift in space even though there's no air. Sometimes something can be emotionally satisfying even if it's physically impossible. TV Tropes calls this fridge logic, based on a quote from Alfred Hitchcock. When asked about a continuity error in Vertigo, Hitchcock referred to the scene in question as an icebox scene, and he said he was unconcerned with a scene that, quote, hits you after you've gone home and started pulling cold chicken out of the icebox. You can imagine him saying that in like his voice, because I can't do it. And as for what's canon, there has never been a time, even before George Lucas sold his property to Disney, that he has considered the extended universe part of his story, his canon. He's always been either dismissive or maybe even a little bit hostile to Star Wars stories that he didn't write. He's made it abundantly clear in many interviews that nothing that anyone else writes about Star Wars happens in his Star Wars universe. So that really means that nothing that Disney does now can ever break his canon. There actually isn't really a canon to speak of, or at least not a single canon to speak of. That kind of brings us full circle to where we started with this part of the video. What are we to make with these lore-destroying plot holes and bad writing in The Acolyte? Flames in space. Can't start caring about this right now unless you want everything to sound like that one shot in Star Trek 2009. Which was cool for one scene, but not really exciting for a whole movie that mainly takes place in space. Chubby Jedi. He's a Jedi. You're telling me that size matters now? Anakin isn't special. At the time this video is released, we don't have any idea how May or Osha were conceived. We have a single line of dialogue. Even if someone used the Force to create them, how does that have any effect on the story of Anakin Skywalker? That's a different story that takes place much later. And for what it's worth, the prophecy people are saying has been invalidated by Osha and May, which actually wasn't even fully realized until the 2019 novel Master and Apprentice, says, "A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored." Him. Not she or they. Him. It's just not an issue. They can't be the chosen ones or whatever. Ki-Adi-Mundi said in The Phantom Menace,
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
I got a real shocker for you here. One of the main points of the prequels is that the Jedi were really fucking wrong. I'm 100 million% sure they very intentionally chose to include Ki-Adi-Mundi because he said this in the prequel movies. Not sure how the season will turn out, but it would be par for the Jedi course if they either buried this whole incident or stuck their heads in the sand and refused to acknowledge what's happening. Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday. The lightsabers are the wrong color. I'm not trying to say that plot holes don't matter. It's just that none of these inconsistencies are any worse than anything we've seen anywhere else in Star Wars so far. And if you're not chomping at the bit to hate something, none of these errors or plot holes or inconsistencies can be any more egregious than people walking around on a meteor in open space wearing gas masks? Or the Leia and Luke smooch? Woof!
Part 4. Politics and Agendas.
Okay, so fine, you say. The plot holes and lore stuff aren't that big of a deal. But why does everything have to be so political these days? I don't want any politics in my Star Wars. Come on. You know that Lucas has always been a flaming commie liberal. You know that the first series was about the Vietnam War. It was a critique of imperial powers involved in Vietnam. The entirety of the prequel trilogy is political. You literally watch a dictator undermine a democracy. And then there was this.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Really, it's the type of politics that Star Wars is addressing that's getting the negative attention now. Criticizing a war is one thing. Writing gay characters, hiring a diverse cast, trying to come up with stories that are a little bit more interesting than green equals good, red equals bad that have been told in the past. Maybe not so much for some people. The primary argument being made from what is sort of loosely called the fandom menace is that by hiring women for lead roles or a diverse cast, Disney and Amazon and Marvel and all these other companies that make content are ruining their favorite things from when they were a kid, ruining their franchises. If Lucasfilm attempts to be inclusive, it's ultimately going to cost them in terms of the quality of the story, or at least that is the argument they are making. Do we call them the menace or just fandom? I'm going to go with the menace. That seems to be more appropriate. The menace is making a direct tie between increasing diversity in casting and character creation with a direct drop in the quality of the things that they like. And in the menace's eyes, the number one culprit is, of course, Kathleen Kennedy. I should say that I'm oversimplifying this by saying the fandom menace comprises all of toxic fandom. There are plenty of toxic fans that are not directly associated with the fandom menace. I'm just saying that they are happy and willing representative of toxic fandom. There's probably a way to make the argument that the menace makes without being like 130% offensive and bigoted, but I haven't seen that argument made that way yet. Let us foray into some of these channels and trudge through their content and see what sense we can make of it, if any.
Part 5. Let's get toxic.
I want to quickly interrupt myself to bring myself a word rant, or yourself. It's for you. A word rant for you. Woke is not a noun. It is an adjective. You can't get rid of woke any more than you can get rid of translucent or hazy or red. It is a descriptor. When you use woke as a noun, you sound like a square. You sound like this.
A dope fiend refers to the reefer butt as a roach because it resembles a cockroach.
What you're saying when you want to get rid of woke is that you want to get rid of the acknowledgement, exploration, and resolution of past and current oppression and exploitation of other human beings. When you say your state is where woke goes to die, you're saying that your state ignores all of the social problems that lead to negative consequences for all the population, not just minorities. Yeah, here's a shocker. Racism against people of color is also bad for white people, just like misogyny is also bad for men, and the anti-gay, queer, trans movement is bad for the straights. Bigotry destroys everything it touches, especially those who gleefully wield it. Anyway, when you use woke as a noun, you sound like an idiot to everyone except for other people who use woke as a noun. Congratulations. Okay, now I'm uninterrupting myself. Let's get back to getting toxic. Part of the reason that I started making YouTube videos is I liked to observe like repetition and patterns in movies. It tells you a lot about kind of what's going on. It tells you a lot about the mental state of the people that wrote the movie. It's a really fun exercise. Let's do that with YouTube channels that are toxic and rot your soul. All right, we're gonna pop over to some YouTube channels and check them out. We're gonna start with the RK Outpost. This is Ryan Kennel's channel. We're gonna start with each one that we look at. We're gonna start by looking at the channel description. Then we're gonna look at some thumbnails on their channel, kind of look at patterns and what their technique is there. Then we're gonna look at the words they're actually using in their titles, see what kind of patterns we can find in there. And then I'll just probably have some general comments about each one. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna start with the RK Outpost. Let's look at his channel description. We have an address where you can send him stuff. He's a Navy veteran, passionate about nearly everything in his life. On this channel, you'll find honest opinions and straight talk. You can leave a comment and join the discussion. Okay, honest opinions, straight talk, passionate about sports and gaming and entertainment. All right, and then, let's take a look at these thumbnails. You see kind of the pattern that they have. They've got the big red and white letters with a picture next to it of somebody, either a stock photo or like, you try to find like a bad photo or an embarrassing photo or something that you can kind of manipulate to make it look worse so the people look stupid. And then these, they just got wrecked. This is sad. This will be bad. This is a joke. They / Disney can't stand this. This is bullshit. Just all these things telling you how to feel. This is huge. This is a flop. This is bad. You should feel these ways about these things, and it should always be negative. All right, let's pop over to my little spreadsheet of YouTube video titles. I've got one of these for each of the channels I'm reviewing here. So Ryan loves to use the word woke. Of the 565 videos he's got on this Star Wars list, he's used it at least 72 times. So, he's found his cash cow. He's used disaster 87 times. Loves things that are disasters. Destroyed 56 times. 5 of those were destroyed by fans. Loves it when fans are destroying things. Fail 54 times. Cancelled or canceling 53. Fired, firing, fire about 40 times. He loves cringe and slam 21 and 28 times each. Loves to talk about Disney going into damage control. That's a big topic as well. Disney have, in constant panic and spin to try to fix these massive errors that they're apparently making in their IP. I was kind of wondering if this guy had ever made a Star Wars video about something he likes. If you sort the videos by release date, it seems like they kind of started positive. I haven't watched them, but they look nice based on the title, so that's nice. But it's only like being very generous, like 20 out of the 565 plus videos. So I'm not like trying to give him roses or a medal or anything. He's got other playlists of things he likes, like the Star Wars EU, but this one is pretty much just unadulterated hate for something he ostensibly likes. I mean, let's just scroll through them. Since I already put them in release date in chronological order, you can kind of see that as of June 2021, this guy already decided he hated the Acolyte. That was 3 years ago. Almost half of the videos that Kendall made about the Acolyte were before the show aired, which was really kind of interesting. The way that a lot of these words are repeated, it's like a literal propaganda technique. It's overwhelming when you just cold look at the words, like look at the bold words and just see it's literally just all negative, words. It's just pure negativity, no positivity at all. All right, Mr. Grizzy, let's take a look at the channel description. Discussing entertainment and media, ripping the bad, and occasionally praise the good. Again, like these other channels, when they say that they praise the good, even occasionally, they generally don't have anything positive to say. Focus on film and television, Disney, Lucasfilm, and MCU mainly. Those are the core of the outrage machine on YouTube. As well as commentary and discussion on the fandom. This channel is dedicated primarily to cover media and culture. If we move on over to the main video tab, you see the thumbnails are really similar to Kendall in terms of their design. They've got the big words and then the unflattering pictures, the least flattering as possible. They both do the speech bubble thing of the people in the thumbnails saying dumb things. There's also a lot of these hating fans on the sites. It's very important for all these dudes to know that that these companies hate you specifically, like you. This is actually a really common tactic used in like fascist propaganda. You other a group, you tell your constituents that group hates your group, and that everything they do while they're breathing is dedicated to destroying you personally, because these guys are all raging narcissists. And to sort of prove my point, more othering and dehumanizing these people, them, they, insane, soy boys. For a bunch of people that hate non-gendered pronouns, they sure do love using them all of the time so as to ambiguously define their scary enemy. Let's go over to the spreadsheet. So you can see here his big thing is shills. You're a shill if you say you like a Star Wars thing. You're a shill defending Disney. You're a paid shill. They give you money to fake support their content. Now, it is true that there definitely are influencers that are paid to say good things about Disney stuff. Like, I think in Jenny Nicholson's video where she did a bit of a breakdown of kind of the tragedy of Darth Galaxy's The Edge, the Foolish, and she talks about some of these influencers being fairly clearly paid to just say good things that are kind of scripted about Disney resorts. That definitely exists. I don't think that just any rando that likes a Disney thing is a shill, probably. Defends is kind of the word of the day here, too, because anyone who defends something from the attacks of these rabid chupacabras or woke soy boy shills, because, again, they like something that they like. This is another little trick of wording that a lot of these guys use. This saying somebody's losing it, or lost their minds, or went crazy when they heard blah blah blah. And in this case, it's Kathleen Kennedy loses it. And if you actually see the quote, it's like her saying something like, "It's hard for some of these women creators and women in these roles because the fan base is male dominated, and they get a lot of hate from the fan base that is male dominated." She's not screaming into a microphone or pulling her hair out or crying or looking for a bathtub of warm water and a pack of razors. She's saying sometimes people are mean to other people. In other words, she's losing it. Oh, and this was a week before the release of Acolyte. So Mr. Grizzy hadn't even seen the show yet, but, he already knew that it sucked, just like Ryan Kennel knew 3 years before it came out. Anyway, I would do a word breakdown of this channel, but it's just shills. Shills like 1,000 times. Shill. Disney Star Wars shills. He does really like using MCU, which I really can't take somebody seriously who uses that term because it's really stupid. But he really likes that. He uses MCU quite a bit. He's very happy to dig in on that. There is one more here that we should just look at. MCU shills defend woke X-Men 97, attack fans for criticizing it. I am pretty sure that X-Men 97 was overwhelmingly well received. I watched it. It was phenomenal. I watched X-Men 92 when it was on TV. I loved that. I loved X-Men 97. I didn't really talk to anybody who didn't like it. So it was very woke. He's not wrong about that. But I don't think it was an unpopular show. So anyway, let's go on to our next channel. All right, let's move on to Nerderotic. Check out the channel description here. Former comic book retailer covering the good, the bad, and the ugly from pop culture. Home of various playlists of shows, I guess. Got some host information and contact information. Yet another mailing address. I gotta get like a P.O. box and start getting stuff mailed to me. This is a good idea. Bags of money is probably preferable if you guys have those. And then let's go ahead and move into the thumbnails. And you'll notice, you remember in the description it said the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's no good here. That doesn't happen. These guys take dehumanizing and humiliation to like new levels. Like every picture that they have on here is an attempt to make people just look utterly foolish. But I come away feeling they've kind of humiliated themselves a little bit more than anyone else. I mean, you're getting the picture right. Big words, emotional language, bad or Photoshop pictures of the subjects of the videos. Everything is like doom. It's all ending. We're winning, but also losing, apparently. Cringe, insane, yikes, lame, flop, ratio, failure, panic, the end, doom. Literally, they use the word doom in one of these. You can't even make this up. This is all just really, really, truly sad and pathetic, actually. And I mean, like, just look at some of these pictures, like giving everybody in the Acolyte cast a haircut that a black one would wear. And like having Harvey Weinstein in there because Leslie Headland worked for him a long time ago. Mr. T superimposed over the Black Dwarf's face, like the woman. Like it's just, like I don't understand how you can not see this and understand that these are racist and bigoted things that these people are doing. But the technique that they use here is when you say, hey, this is an offensive, racist thing, then they make fun of you for saying things are offensive and racist. Like this other picture of the actor playing Osha and May that says oppressed. I mean, come on. Like, it's very obvious what they're doing here. Let's go over to the spreadsheet. We see woke only 27 times compared to the 70 some odd that had appeared in Ryan's videos. So quite a bit less, but disaster, love a disaster 59 times. Destroy appears 21 times. Failed 57 times. Cancel 21 times. Doom and doomed 15 times. Panic 26 times. The whole point of the whole channel is for you to become more and more outraged the more you watch their videos. I really like looking at the titles for the run they did on the Rings of Power. There's 19 whole videos about what an absolute disaster Rings of Power was. Just absolutely devastating disaster. So much so that a second season will begin on August 29th of 2024 this year, and Amazon has already renewed it for a third season. Just absolutely disastrous. Also, you guys hate Rings of Power so much and then make more hours worth of content about the Rings of Power than if someone sat down and actually watched every single piece of Lord of the Rings visual media ever made. I love here they have this, Amazon is patently evil. Like, probably the argument could be made in some ways, but I guarantee you they're not saying Amazon is evil because they price out competitors or have grueling working conditions in their warehouses or something like that, because that would probably be woke. They do have at least one positive title, John Wick Chapter 4, a brilliant finale. So, there's the one. That's good. I do like these end of woke Hollywood things because, like, do they really believe that Hollywood is going to stop making movies that are socially progressive? Like, that's never happened in the history of cinema. It's never gotten more conservative or shied more away from talking about social issues. So I don't really know that this really holds up under scrutiny. All right, so we now are going to move on to our last channel. All right, our last channel here is Overlord DVD. This is run by the mad villain Dictor Van Doomcock. Yes, I see what you did there. Let's go to the channel description. It starts off with a little copyright, a little bit of role-playing. It's the YouTube channel for a supervillain and pop culture critic. See the, of course, recurring theme of being a pop culture critic or a culture critic or anything like that, which is always, to me, it seems like kind of a red flag for somebody who's going to say bigoted things. Before we say anything more about this channel and its star, Doomcock is a big fan of James O'Keefe, fraudulent hack journalist and, quote, political activist, end quote, who's genuinely good at editing video and audio to make it look like people are doing and saying things that they're not actually doing. He's very good at that. Doomcock isn't necessarily any more subtle about his, views or anything like that than these other channels. Somehow his content might be dumber. If you look at these absolutely absurd captions and the pictures and titles, this one, Ahsoka, a poison pill to kill Star Wars. So I suppose we're to be led to believe that someone at Disney or a whole team of people at Disney is trying to kill Star Wars by writing a bad TV show. Because all people who work at Disney are high school, teenage drama queens, I guess. I don't know. Disneyland, the new Sodom and Gomorrah, starting to sound like the old ladies at church a little bit. These things of Disney stock crashing immediately because of a TV show. Stock does not work that way. Stock markets do not work that way. People don't watch a TV show and then see a bunch of people going on Rotten Tomatoes and review bombing it and think, I'm going to sell my stock in Disney. That's just not how that works. This thing about pay equity, women being paid less than men at Disney, especially on the Acolyte, this is a big gotcha moment for Doomcock here, because he can rub it in these feminists' faces that women are not paid as much as men. Apparently not knowing that I don't think any feminists would be surprised to learn that women are not making as much as men anywhere, really. I don't think that that's shocking to anyone. Annoying, yeah. Infuriating, definitely. Shocking, surprising, I don't think so. Also, now Overlord DVD cares about pay equity, even though I thought equity was bad. It's bad to have equity. It's bad to know about, I don't know. It's just very strange. This is kind of like someone in the KKK being proudly racist and then criticizing a Nazi because they're racist. It's very weird. Dune 2, is it woke or is it a masterpiece? How is this not a parody? Like, how is this not this site needs to be a parody? This is coming up again and again for me, is how are these not parodies of themselves? It just doesn't make any sense. All right, let's just go over to the spreadsheet. Now, the first time I was looking through these, I actually noticed, looking over the titles here, that the whole bolded dramatic words repeated all the time kind of thing started in June of 2020, and then it increased to the current kind of fever pitch that we see it today from then. I went back and I looked at the other sheets for the other channels, and sure enough, the others were kind of like this too. Brian Kennel led this particular pack in December of 2019. Then there's a bit of a lull, and then it picks up again in July 2020. Nerdrotic started around March of 2020, so they all kind of learned this technique at the same time and seem to kind of just cash in on it at the same time. One of the other gems of this channel is the constant badgering of Kathleen Kennedy. Not that that's unique to this channel or anything, but this particular channel is known for its speculation that Kathleen Kennedy will be fired or replaced, or, you know, George Lucas is going to come back, or Dave Filoni's going to, like, you know, take her out in a black bag and beat her in the desert, like Casino style, or what, you know, whatever. They've got all these different narratives about Kathleen Kennedy leaving. Kathleen Kennedy's name is in this Star Wars videos on this channel a total of 66 times out of 228 videos. But she makes an appearance in many more videos than that. So it's just interesting to see that for, you know, years and years and years now, Kennedy is getting fired. They've never been correct about it. Probably they never will be. Or maybe they will be. I don't know. Stop clock. It's right twice a day kind of thing. Whatever. If you keep saying something, eventually maybe it'll happen. Kind of general observations here. These guys are all wrong about everything almost all the time. I mean, they have their opinions, which are their opinions, but anytime they sort of say that they have insider knowledge about anything, they just don't. This actually reminded me, there was a time when this rumor was going around that Disney was going to somehow retcon the sequel trilogy with a new trilogy and, like, erase the evil things that Kathleen Kennedy has done. I mean, the idea is stupid enough that I don't even think I need to say any more about it. It's just funny that that was, like, a thing, and now they've gone on to other things that aren't true and real. Okay, so we've taken a look at some of these monstrous thumbnails and dug into the language and the titles and in the captions. Now, look at this. Tabloids. Covers referring to Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's relationship. Notice anything? The varying quality of the pictures, the words they choose to highlight, the words that are repeated on many covers, the imminent doom. Third parties giving inside information about who's the bad guy and who's humiliating who, and so on and so on. Does this look at all familiar? Years of stories that are repetitive and never seem to change, but are also pitched as urgent and new. And this is really what the ultimate creative output of these toxic fan sites is. They're tabloids. They find an issue and they exploit it in a way that's guaranteed to pique maximum interest. And they talk about it day after day, week after week, year after year, and just drive it into the ground. If they can't find an issue, they create one. But I think these are different from traditional tabloids. Traditional tabloids are about celebrity gossip. There's some of that on these toxic fan sites. There's insider gossip and things like that. But it's always pitched in a very different way than traditional tabloids are pitched. See, they're exploiting divisions not over two celebrities getting divorced, but whether characters being openly gay in a TV show amounts to an agenda, or A character that's just gay in real life but is playing a straight character also amounts to an agenda. Whether girl power is stupid and dumb and weak. Whether a diverse cast means it's impossible to tell a good story. Whether the fact that women have led 4 out of 33 Marvel movies and 6 out of 25 television series has turned Marvel into the MCU. As we've seen from the words they use, they're about casting one group of people literally as evil, simply because they don't think those people fit in with the stories that they like, even though they don't have any particular right to those stories, or at least any more a right to those stories than the gay people that are being cast. They're taking a culture already divided by social change and dividing it even more by entertainment, something that we're all generally supposed to enjoy. Yeah, Disney Star Wars kinda sucks sometimes. Maybe even most of the time these days. Is it really a surprise given how thinly we spread our IP? There's a new Harry Potter TV show coming out. They're doing the books. Again, Warner Brothers and Disney are both carrying on with DC and Marvel, even though neither company really seems to have a solid idea on where they want to take these characters. And they're very willing to commit to releasing movies before they have a story, basically. This is quite literally what is happening with almost all IP-driven entertainment. It's not because there's a binary actor playing the lead role in a show, or because someone made a joke about R2-D2 being a lesbian, which is a hilarious joke objectively. Just laugh at something, please. It's happening because companies are more interested in pumping out movies than they are in making good movies. They've already rebooted X-Men like twice, now maybe a third time coming up. Can we just stop for like a decade, maybe, please, maybe? On top of companies wanting to pump out as much content as they can, they are also interested in appealing to the widest possible audience. This is known as capitalism. Capitalism is woke because when everyone buys the products you sell, you make more money than when only one small group of people buys the products you sell. So you can watch the things you enjoy and ignore the rest if you'd like. I mean, everybody is welcome to share their opinions, for sure. But maybe you can figure out a constructive way to provide criticism without releasing a vomit stream of hate 2 to 3 times a week on the internets. As we've seen from the reviews of The Acolyte, you can not like it and give good reasons for not liking it without being a bigot.
Final opinion no one asked for.
My father, RIPD, was a pretty difficult person to deal with, especially when I was growing up. He had a lot of problems, you know? And he took his negative emotions out on the rest of his family. When I was learning to drive, I dreaded getting in the car with him because I knew he was gonna nitpick every single thing I did the whole time I was driving. Every mistake he would point out, no matter how small. It was miserable. It was so miserable, I didn't want to drive. It was so miserable, other people didn't want to ride with me. Driving became an absolutely gut-wrenching experience. See, what I'm getting at here is it's not fun to like Star Wars when discussion in fandom about the latest episode in the latest series is more fraught than discussions about Israel and Palestine. The world is a stressful fucking place. I don't need to be stressed out about more things. Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni and woke aren't ruining Star Wars. People whose entire self-worth is wrapped up in hating Star Wars are ruining Star Wars. If I watch something Star Wars and I don't like it, I can just forget about it. I can watch something else. I can put on The Blues Brothers, or Evil Dead, or The Empire Strikes Back, another Star Wars property that I like. It's really astonishing that there are any actors willing to be in this thankless franchise, or any creators willing to create more Star Wars stuff. You know, we could have had Idris Elba as James Bond. Idris Elba. But the suggestion that a black man played James Bond was met with such outrage that Elba was put off even trying to do it. He wouldn't even consider the possibility. And I guess people were rightly angry because it would be impossible for a black man to wear stupid gadgets that shoot lasers or drive cars with unnecessarily huge armaments and shoot a gun into a camera. I want to go back to that quote from Sam Adams in his review of The Acolyte. He talks about the heavy hand of brand management chipping away at anything that might rock the boat. and the sort of back and forth between Lucasfilm and the fans, and how that had a deleterious effect on the products that Lucasfilm was putting out. And he's right. What ruined The Rise of Skywalker wasn't Kathleen Kennedy, blah, blah, blah. It was the fan backlash and Disney capitulating to fan demands. I really don't know how the show's going to turn out, obviously. Episodes 5 and 6 have been pretty great. They've really exponentially increased the quality of the series. They're exploring a lot of really cool ideas. I'm excited at the tension between teacher and corruptor. And I think that that's going to be a fun thing to look at for the rest of the series. Maybe I'll even make a video about it. Hopefully they land the plane. I do share some of Lily Loofborough's concerns about, hiding secrets and kind of overlooking things that are more interesting. It seems like they've not fallen into that trap in episodes 5 and 6. I share Adam's concern that Lucasfilm is just going to continually capitulate to fans, though hopefully they've learned their lesson about these toxic people. Ultimately, whether Lucasfilm and Disney make more good Star Wars material or material that I enjoy is kind of irrelevant. I still enjoy the Star Wars movies that I enjoy, and literally nothing is ever going to change that. I guess before I close, I'll ask you one more time, please like, subscribe. Like I said, this is the first of these videos in this new series that I'm doing. Hopefully these turn out well. I appreciate you sticking around if you have this far. I guess I would just encourage everybody to like what you like, don't like what you don't like, and try not to divide people into racist, bigoted camps over entertainment.